Welcome back. So in one of our previous segments, we looked at documenting our database. We looked at DBDL, database design language. So to kind of continue on from that, we're going to talk about diagramming our database. And so we have a very, very common diagram called the ER diagram, the entity relationship diagram, that is very widely used and kind of visually depicts the database that we have and the relationships between our different entities and tables, which is where the name comes from, right? And it's just kind of a way to, visually see and represent our table. We have our DBDL, which is really helpful and really useful, but kind of seeing it depicted in a visual manner is oftentimes very, very beneficial. And so we're going to look at all of our different entities, all of our different tables, and the one-to-many relationships that exist within them. A note there at the bottom. That's nothing new. What a foreign key is. We should all know what a foreign key is by now, right? But it is essentially just the many side in a table, right? We have a one-to-many relationship. Primary key being on the one side, and then the many side is the foreign key. So let's take a look at what this looks like. So So let's take a look at what this actually looks like. Here is an example of an entity relationship or ER diagram. And so we have our table, our entity, represented by essentially like a box, a rectangle, right? And so at the top of that is the table's name, the entity's name. And then we have kind of in that first row, essentially, the darkened row at the top is the primary key for that entity. And then we have all subsequent columns or attributes remaining in that table in the remaining part of the rectangle. So here we got the entity name, the table name right there. Then we have our primary keys right there. And then all the rest of our remaining attributes for that table down here below. And then in this example here, we can see our secondary keys and our alternate keys. Clean that up a little bit. Good. And then we can also see we have a dot right here which indicates the many side of the relationship. And then over here on the other side is the one side, which is just simply indicated, by nothing essentially, right? In Access, we see this represented as 1, and then that's a rectangle. We see it represented as a 1 and an infinity. Nailed it. So that's what it looks like in Microsoft Access. I'm having way too much fun with the screen draw. But yeah, in this particular example of this diagram here, we'll see it indicated by a dot, and then nothing on this other side, and then we'll have a dotted line indicating the relationship. And so we also have what we refer to as crow's foot notation, and this is kind of what you'll see more often. This is a lot more widely used than the other example. And so it's called crow's foot notation because, right here, that's a rectangle. All right, that's fine. Because that looks like kind of like a crow's foot, I guess, right? And then over here on this other side, we have, that works out pretty well actually, represents a 1, right? So this is still representing our one-to-many relationship. We have our departments here. This is the one side. And then our employees, this is going to be our many side. And so this crow's foot notation with this kind of ring here and then the crow's foot, the reason why it's represented like that is because it can represent 0, 1, or many records in the employees table. So still representing that one to many relationship, but kind of in a way that makes a little more sense, at least in my opinion. And then we have our symbols here that kind of look like a regular flow chart. This is kind of the more common ER diagram that you'll see out there, especially with this crow's foot notation. All right, so clear that off. Good. This is just talking about access, what I already mentioned with the 1 and the infinity symbol. It is important to point out that you will only see that in access if you have the referential integrity constraint enforced, right? We've talked about referential integrity before, preventing the creation of orphan records, not allowing you to delete records that are tied to other records in a different table, right? So by enforcing referential integrity, we do that. We prevent the creation of orphan records, and then we can see that 1 and infinity symbol in our relationship window, only if that referential integrity is enforced. So that's pretty great. Hey, look, there it is, right? So, we've seen this before. There's that 1, the infinity symbol, the line representing the relationship between department num, right? And then we know in this case that referential integrity is enforced because we do see the 1 and infinity symbol. So that's fun. All right, so another term you may hear, at least in relation to our relational database, is cardinality. And so what that typically refers to is the uniqueness of the data in a particular field, in a particular attribute. And so the higher cardinality of that attribute, of that field, the higher, or I guess the more unique the data that's inside it is, right? So for example, typically a primary key is going to contain all unique values, so that is a high cardinality, right? A name, a field, an attribute like name, right, is going to be, maybe mid to high cardinality, meaning that there's going to be some duplicates, but for the most part, it's probably going to be fairly unique values, right? But potential for some duplicates. But then you may have a field where it may be like a yes or no value, right? Like, or a better example, like gender, male or female, right? It's going to be a very low cardinality because the values in them are not going to be unique. There's only 2 values, male or female. But if you have 100 records, 1,000 records, whatever the case may be, the uniqueness of that data is going to be very, very low. It's going to be a low cardinality because they're all going to be either male or female, right? So the uniqueness is low, so we call that a low cardinality. All right, so yeah, there's a screenshot of the relationship and access. We've all seen that before. But that ER diagram, entity relationship diagram, you'll see that a lot when dealing with databases. You may see it referred to as an ERM, the entity relationship model. Basically the same thing though. Just a way to visually see all of the tables, the entities, and the relationships that exist between them, right? And so you can kind of see them all here. And then in case of access, like in this screenshot, we can see which ones have referential integrity being enforced because we can see the 1 and the infinity symbol, the 1 and the many side of the relationship. So, all right, so there's all about our diagrams, our entity relationship diagrams, ER or ERM, entity relationship model. Good, so I hope you guys have found this helpful, and we'll see you next time.